Growing up, my older sister, 27, enjoyed lavish birthdays. Her 16th was an extravaganza with live musicians, a rented space and catering, and she gifted her a car while I, 20 male, got to leave the country for the first time for my 16th. Although I loved it, this trip became something held over my head and used as my 17th birthday present and 2 Christmas presents. It never felt like a gift. Instead, it was a reason to make me feel spoiled and ungrateful for anything else that my parents did. It was brought up whenever I wanted to hang out with friends or ask for money for the movies, etc., and it is still brought up if I need something. For my 18th, I expected a celebration like my sister's extravagant 18th, but my parents seemed disinterested. I ended up sharing a party with a family friend who didn't like me and receiving re-gifted presents and a store-bought cake. On my actual birthday, my parents planned nothing. When I confronted my mom, she dismissed my feelings, causing an argument in which she called me spoiled and entitled. The entire thing ruined my birthday. My sister took me out to dinner, but my mom had an outburst that made me cry and feel terrible. It was the worst birthday ever and it still bothers me. I'm worried about my upcoming 21st and would like to know if I should involve my family. Am I the idiot for feeling neglected compared to my sister's celebrations? Should I just be more understanding and appreciative? Edit. After I confronted my mom about them not planning anything, my sister called and said she wanted to take me out to dinner with her husband. We made plans to do so. About an hour before our reservations, my mom decided she wanted to bring the rest of the family, including herself, even though she'd not been invited. When I said I didn't want her to go, she and my dad had an outburst. The trip I went on was through my high school. I went with about 15 other kids. It was a lot of fun. My sister is a child of divorce. Her dad paid child support until she was 18. We have the same mom and different dads. Not the idiot. Gifting a school trip to you and then holding it over your head is just crappy. That's not gifting. That's manipulating and coercive. You aren't spoiled and entitled when you expect the same treatment your sister got. If they don't want to set that expectation, then they shouldn't have given her huge parties and you get leftover cake. Like, what the heck? I wouldn't include them or expect any better than what you've already gotten. They won't change, unfortunately. I also watched my older brother get everything while I didn't. Golden child syndrome is a thing. Now my mom is in a home and he doesn't want anything to do with her and neither do I. What goes around comes around. The trip I went on was through my high school. Oh, so it wasn't even a trip made for you. I mean, it's amazing that you went with friends somewhere, but I couldn't use that trip as manipulation material with a straight face. Making a school trip a birthday gift and 2 Christmas gifts is a big enough idiot move in and of itself to fill a stadium. Your mom sounds like she was feeling guilty and tried to make up for it by coming to the party your sister made. She didn't like being told no. Parental guilt sucks, but as a parent, I try to own my BS and apologize. I don't blame my kids when I pull stupid crap. Agreed. OP also says his sister is a child of divorce and her father paid child support. Possibly she had a much wealthier father paying for the lavish gifts and celebrations, and the OP's mother and father couldn't afford to give him the same. That's a sucky situation, but it sounds like his parents still handled it about as badly as possible. OP, you deserve to be celebrated, not made to feel less than. This sucks, and I'm sorry you feel so crappy from this situation. I hope you figure out what's best for you in how you handle and communicate with your family. I, 24 female, am getting married in less than a month and I want a child-free wedding. I've always said this, and in the invitations it says that it's child-free. I've been to weddings where there are children and some have screamed during the ceremony and reception. I was at one where a kid didn't want to wait for the cake to be cut, so he snuck up and grabbed a handful. The bride was horrified. My sister, 28, has a kindergartner, and she said she was happy to have some free time. Her boyfriend, nephew's father, was going to stay behind the day of the wedding to be there with my nephew. I guess his friends rented out a cabin somewhere the week of my wedding, and boyfriend wants to go, so he doesn't want to, and in his words, babysit that night. I love my nephew, I do, but he will do anything to make it about him when things aren't about him. She asked if I could make an exception, and she would keep him quiet. I don't trust her in this situation because my grandmother recently had her 80th birthday, and my sister promised our family that she'd keep him calm. He broke away from her, blew out our grandmother's candles, and pushed the cake off when my dad tried to redirect him. She said she couldn't find someone to watch him, and I said I would help her find someone. She said she doesn't trust him with anyone, so I told her she needed to tell her boyfriend that it's not babysitting, and he said he'd be there for her and their son during that night. The venue has open water and a lot of open fields. I also don't want him to get hurt because he loves to run around and get into trouble, and she rarely stops him. So I've told her I'm sorry, but I can't. She called me an idiot for inviting our cousin, who turned 18 in December. I told her she was an adult and could watch and care for herself during this event. There will also be alcohol and other activities later in the night. I don't want a child around that. Our cousin is even leaving before we do the other stuff. She'll only be at the reception for an hour or two. She says, she barely turned 18, I'm your sister and you can't do this for me. Edit, I've talked to my fiancé about hiring security. I don't want to take away my guests' time from having fun. This is also sad to me because she's my only sibling, but she tries to pass him off to other people when she gets tired. I can't do it. Not the idiot. She's clearly demonstrated that she can't control the child when she says she will. Oh, and tell her boyfriend that parenting is not babysitting. This is a different issue, but it's not your problem. You're right, he did make a promise and now wants to renege. It's not your relationship to micromanage. If your sister wants to allow it, let her. You've offered help finding a sitter, that's the best you can do. If she doesn't attend because her boyfriend can't keep a promise, that's her problem. Stick to it and have the wedding you want. But he doesn't want to babysit. He wants to go with friends. Boo-hoo. I would definitely tell my sister if I thought her husband was being an idiot. Do not back down. This is her problem to solve. It's your wedding. If your sister can't attend because her boyfriend is being a deadbeat for the occasion, well, make sure someone takes her a slice of wedding cake the next day. Is she comparing an 18-year-old and a kindergartner? LOL, sorry to say, but your sister is literally delusional if she thinks that a small child and an 18-year-old are the same thing. Your sister doesn't want to argue or fight or deal with her boyfriend. You've done what you need to do. Set your boundaries. The rest is up to her. She needs to worry about her son. Don't let it stress you out. Enjoy your day. Congratulations. My 65 female son, 39, is in a long-distance relationship with his fiancée, 28 female. He used to have a place of his own and I'd lunch with them when she was in town. This happened twice and we got along fine. My son lost his place and now lives with me, which I don't mind, and he pays his half. The problem is that his fiancée asked if she could visit regardless of the fact that my son's living situation has changed. I wasn't entirely comfortable with this as we don't know each other well, and I thought it would be awkward and tense. However, I owed her a chance which would allow us to start bonding. She even said she wanted to cook a meal for us, which I thought was a nice gesture. She was a bit standoffish. She'd perk up and try to participate if it was all three of us, but she fell flat when she and I were one-on-one. She never greeted me if I didn't greet her first, never used my name when addressing me, though I used hers, always gave one-word answers when I tried to engage her and never tried to engage me back. If I handed her something, she didn't thank me. When we spoke, she'd avert her gaze. When I made dinner for us one night, she told my son she didn't feel well, delayed us while in the bathroom for half an hour, came to the table with a heavy sigh and rejected my main course, politely but with no explanation. All told, I sensed she had no interest in building rapport with me, and I was just an obstacle between her and my son. I always ensured that I saw her only in common areas and stayed far away from my son's room the entire time. My attempts at conversation were always neutral and light, with no invasive or probing questions. I hit my breaking point one night and confessed to my son I was hurt she had no interest in me and felt she'd been rude. He tried to comfort me but was offended at me for thinking she'd drive a wedge between us and he'd allow it. He later told me she was livid he'd spent so many hours talking to me that night after all the trouble she took to come see him. However, he also admitted that the two of them had never seen this as a get-to-know-you session and that she was just there to see him. Our bonding as a family could wait. I said this was understandable, but I wish they'd just stayed somewhere else, like an Airbnb, if that was the case. Why ask to visit my home for over a week just to feel like I'm in the way? If bonding as a family could wait, then couldn't our first time living together for over a week have waited too? The meal she promised never got cooked, and I had to discard all the ingredients I bought. She offered no apology or money. A few months later, she wants to visit again, and my son doesn't understand why I'm pushing back. Their story is that if she behaved badly, it's only because she takes a while to warm up and was also trying to stay out of the way. Knowing her visit was an imposition, she cried, said sorry, and that she actually loves me. I don't buy it. She doesn't want to know me, so I don't want to know her either. This is fine and typical of in-laws, and we're under no obligation to be each other's friends. But if you're going to treat me like I don't matter, don't ask to do it right in front of me in my own home. Again. I'd also prefer not to know they're having intimacy while I'm nearby. Am I the idiot for interpreting her behaviour as rudeness or disinterest and not wanting her to ever stay overnight again? Why is your son comforting you, and why would any of her behaviour be translated into driving a wedge between you? She's done nothing to you, but just be a little nervous and awkward. Oh, and threw an hours-long toddler tantrum to boot. How old are you? Are you 65 or 6? You didn't raise any concerns until you reached your breaking point. Do you like drama? Do you like being your son's special lady? Because of the bad behaviour shown here, almost all came from the person thinking she was morally superior. And it's you. You are the idiot, OP. Are we really just going to skim over the fact that OP thought it was rude that the girlfriend had an upset stomach? Like, really? Probably declined the main course because she knew it would make her stomach issue worse? Does she really need to explain that at the dinner table after she was just in the bathroom for half an hour? I'm sure she knew they were waiting and felt bad enough already. Surely OP would have found some reason to pick apart her explanation, to which she was not entitled, even if it was given. I get the feeling this mother-in-law is pretty overbearing and scary, to be honest. I mean, OP was talking about his son's fiancée driving a wedge between them. Bro is almost 40. There's also no mention of a significant other in the story, so I disintegrates into dust because you've obliterated every drop of moisture within a square mile. Straight up shoe leather. I don't refuse to make it that way. It's not my place to tell someone how to enjoy their meal. They will answer for their crimes when standing at the gates of the bad place. But I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on 2 more ribeyes that would just be ruined. They wouldn't even want me to keep the fat cap on theirs, so they really were going to end up as a couple of indistinct grey bricks. So I went ahead and just got 2 manager's specials of a much cheaper cut. We ate dinner without complaints. They loved the solid bricks of pure carbon I served. But then mother-in-law took it upon herself to snoop through my purse for the grocery receipt. Honestly, kind of par for the course with her and a whole other can of worms for another time, and I got caught red-handed. They're offended that I served them a second-class meal. I'm over here like, come on, come on. Hubs thinks I should apologise since it's a bad look, but my only regret is that I didn't cover my tracks better. Am I the idiot for buying cheaper steaks for my in-laws? Let me get this straight. They enjoyed the meal until they saw the price tag. I want to know how she gets away with snooping through your purse like it's perfectly normal. Not the idiot at all. Everyone's the idiot here. You don't treat your guests to less expensive cuts of meat, no matter how much you dislike their cooking preferences. You also don't go looking through other people's purses or wallets. But if you were going to do it, you should have covered your tracks better. It may be worth noting that you committed a breach of etiquette while your mother-in-law committed a breach of privacy. She's the bigger idiot, but as a host, you're a cheap cut. Oh, well done. You don't give your guests the top shelf and expensive bourbon if they're going to mix it with Coke. You give them the regular stuff. Pretty expected. Ever since my husband died, I've been a very lonely woman. I, 55 female, have 1 son, 27, and 2 grandchildren, a male tween and a female toddler, with a 3rd and 4th due in 6 months. His first child is from his ex-girlfriend, 25, while his second and soon-to-be twins are from his current wife, 27. My son is a very bright but naive boy. He was head over heels in love with his ex, and when he got accepted into his dream university, she dropped out of school to follow him and start their perfect family. Their relationship didn't survive the following year. Despite all the stress and workload of college, my son still paid child support and visited his child. They both moved on to different relationships. My son married a beautiful, kind girl he met in college. His ex started dating another man and had 3 more kids, a pre-tween female, a preschool female, and a male toddler with him. Earlier this month, his ex came to him, needing somewhere to live. To put it briefly, her new partner was an awful person. She was 7 months pregnant, had 4 kids, and had no money, job, or education. His ex has a mental illness which had caused her a hard time keeping a job, and they've been living at a home shelter for the past week. My son and daughter-in-law were kind enough to let them temporarily stay at their home rent-free until she found somewhere else. My daughter-in-law's parents worked in real estate and were renting out one of their properties, a two-bedroomed house, to them for a reduced cost. My son and his wife had been having financial troubles ever since their daughter was born premature, and with the twins on the way, I thought they would need a larger home. In the 1990s, I inherited a spacious house from my grandparents with 7 bedrooms and 3 extra rooms turned into an office, library and art studio. My husband and I, as an otherwise regular middle-class couple, were incredibly thankful for their generosity. It's so large that it can technically be considered a mansion, and I've been living in it all alone after my husband's death. I discussed it with my son and daughter-in-law, and we agreed it would be best if they moved in. After all, this house is way too big for one woman. However, my son's ex and her kids would not be allowed to join them. My grandson would be allowed to stay if he had nowhere to go, but the rest of the family had nothing to do with me. Don't get me wrong, I empathise with her situation, but at the end of the day, they're not my family. I worry about potential tensions that could arise. Pregnancy is stressful enough. It wouldn't be fair for my daughter-in-law to share her husband with his ex. I refuse to let my beautiful home become a breeding ground for dysfunction. I talked this over with my daughter-in-law's parents, and they decided to give the ex 1 month to find somewhere else to stay while my son prepares to move in. The ex is absolutely livid with me for trying to tear apart her family. I explained to her that it was my house, my rules. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Sure, her situation is awful, but you're not obligated to shelter her and 3 kids who aren't related to you at all. If your son and his wife want to help, that's really kind of them, but you can make your own decisions. Your points are valid. It would not be a good idea to have your son, his wife, his ex, and so many kids under one roof, especially since she's pregnant. I hope this woman finds a place to stay and a partner who loves and supports her, but this is not your problem. Really, can you imagine? She came crawling back and expected him to start being her husband right in front of his actual wife. She would 100% try to treat her ex as a husband and expect him to do for her like he's doing for his actual wife. I'm sorry the ex is in a bad position, but I would never allow her to move in. Honestly, the maths is killing me. They all need some education and a healthy supply of protection. The son was 17 and had his girlfriend pregnant. Am I too tired to read this right? And then she had more and more kids. How can people afford this? Not the idiot. It's your place to do what you will, but your son and his ex need to stop and think about consequences and actions. I say this with a brother with 8 kids by 3 mothers, and he can't figure out why he's not winning in life.